And we're live. Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our another episode of Modern Enterprise Architecture Meetup. And today's topic is, will AI enhance or replace enterprise architect? So good afternoon to those of you in Australia and New Zealand, and good morning for our viewers in UK. Please make sure to introduce yourselves in the comments and let us know where you're watching us from. I'm Jana Martins. I'm talent and community lead at FromHereOn. I will be your host for today. In today's discussion, we'll explore how AI is transforming the role of enterprise architect and the potential impact on the skill required for the profession. We'll look at how the role of enterprise architect might evolve and what new competency may be needed. We'll also dive into the balance between AI-driven insights and things like human intuition and creativity. So please join our discussions with your questions and comments, or at least please say hi, because if you're not saying hi, we don't know that you're here, and it's kind of doesn't feel nice that no one's saying hi. We plan to run these discussions monthly, and I will actually announce our upcoming topic later today. Our purpose is to create a space for architectural thinkers to connect and share the information, and to build an informal community where members can enjoy exploring diverse architectural ideas. So anyway, that's enough of me. Without any further delays, I'll pass it on to our speakers to introduce themselves. Malcolm, please, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Jana. Hi, everyone. I'm Malcolm Fitzgerald, so very happy and excited to be here. Thanks for offering to have me here. I've been in the game around 25 years, mostly in CTO roles. Had a lot of experience across enterprise architecture and all the other domains, and looking forward to a great conversation around AI and EA.
Thank you, Malcolm. Brian, over to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Lowe. I'm the Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer for FromHereOn. And my career is also about 25 years, I think, something like that. I started off in AI and data many years ago, before the infamous AI winter, of course, and then sold my soul to enterprise architecture and other things. I spent many years in consulting and associated areas in chief architect roles and CTO roles as well. And now I'm living the dream, as it were, here at FromHereOn. Every week is different, so it's good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Simon, over to you. Simon, just remember, unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody. That's never happened before. So yeah, I'm the CTO for Trideca. I've been a CTO, I think, about 3 or 4 times now, and I had my career that started at the Telstra Research Labs and moved to the States and took on architecture roles and delivery roles and engineering roles in my career. And tour of duty at National Australia Bank and at Suncorp and some time at ANZ and so forth. So I'm really looking forward to a great conversation this afternoon.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. We have quite a few people joining us.
I think we've got
we have actually some problem. Looks like the LinkedIn causing us some problem, and it's frozen on that. Guys, if you're trying to watch us on LinkedIn, then let me just drop the YouTube link, actually, because YouTube is much better platform to watch the videos compared to LinkedIn. So, don't you like technology? Here we go. We're talking about artificial intelligence. We can't even get the stream going. And we're worried that enterprise architect will be replaced. Okay, let me just find our... Yeah, talking to... Now, 1 second. Let me just make sure that I'll drop the YouTube link to our LinkedIn, guys, so that whoever trying to connect us on LinkedIn can watch us on too. Don't you like the technology? Okay. And guys from here on, whoever is watching us live, if you can help me to share from here on YouTube channel, that would be great, so that people can join us there. Okay, I'll just drop the YouTube link, guys, to everyone. So yes, if you can't see it, you can see it on LinkedIn. Please drop on From Here On YouTube channel. You can just Google basically the same topic, and it should come up. So I can see actually a few people joining us on the YouTube now. Let's just hope it's working. So here we go, Microsoft. Anyway, let me keep going here. I felt like I'll start with a little warm up before we go into the dive deep into enterprise architecture, and throw some general statistics. I was sort of researching a little bit before the stream and find a few interesting surveys in the internet. So here's the results of some research that's been run, survey in the 32 countries, conducted in May 2024. So they interview about 25,000 people, and they ask the questions like, how likely you think that AI will change how you do your current job in the next 5 years? And you can see, like, in a lot of countries, people actually, especially young people, think that their current job will change in the next, next 5 years. And then a similar survey been run asking, what do you think if AI will replace your current job in the next 5 years? And you can see still, it's really high percent of the young people actually replying that, yeah, almost 50% think that AI is going to replace their job. What I also find interesting, this question, products and services using artificial intelligence make me nervous. And if you look to countries, Australia is actually 6 from the top. So, 64% of Australians actually nervous about AI products compared to some other countries. So I don't know, guys, what do you think? What do you think about those statistics? Like, is it surprising you, or you feel like, that's about right? That's how everyone feels about AI at the moment. Simon, maybe I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, look, I think it's a case of sort of lies, and damn statistics a bit. That I think there's a high degree of awareness of AI in Australia, and for that matter in the United States and Europe. But there's also a very relatively low level of literacy. And what I mean by that is not to sort of diss everybody, but to sort of more, this is something that's new, and there's not a lot of people who are deeply informed. So that is driving anxiety. There's also, I'll just say it, there's some political narratives at play here. And I think that there are some reasons why in government they have probably a vested interest to try to talk to their constituencies and stir up the concerns around AI. My view is that AI is like any new technology, whether it's the internet, the web, big data, cloud, whatever it is. No technology comes without risk, and all risks need to be mitigated as you go. But we run the risk of putting our heads in the sand, and also running a risk of not taking on board the potential of AI to make a transformative change in our economy and in our systems that we build and how we use technology. And it is not something that we can ignore. And it is also not something that we can resolve with the most perfect risk management framework.
Jana, I think
Brian, what do you think? Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think Simon's fairly on the money there. There's a lot of hyperbole around this. You've got people like Elon Musk saying we're summoning the demon, and you've got Sam Harris talking about this as analogous to an invasion by an alien race, and you've got the infamous stop doing research memo that was signed, I think, last year. A lot of posturing going on there, but some pretty high-ranking people. I think Jan LeCun signed it, Elliot Sutskever, and a number of other doyens there. Demis Habisis might have been a signatory as well. So that generates a lot of clicks, and that generates a lot of discussion, and people are, as Simon points out, attuned to anxiety. But I think the real threat is probably more prosaic than that. And if you look into those figures that you've published from the survey, I think the devil is in the detail. If you're a call center operator, then you would be rightly justified in being very anxious about what the future holds for you. By contrast, and not to lead the witness here, but if you're an enterprise architect, well, I think that question is going to be a lot more complex, and you're probably on much safer ground. So, and so that's sort of in terms of the vertical, let's say, within which you're operating. In terms of the age demographic, younger people are most certainly more vulnerable, no question, because they haven't yet acquired the skills that make them valuable as more experienced operators have. And that the same has always been the case with the pipeline of young graduates coming through. Now, that's obviously exacerbated by the presence of AI that could be used to replace a lot of what they do. So things will change. I don't think they will go away, but there are some legitimate concerns there, certainly.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Malcolm, something to add? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say the nervousness. I think if you look at it through, and you have to look at it through a cultural lens, I think that's a big factor. And that's coming through some of the data as well. I think it was like 67% of people in that slide-in island are nervous about AI, but in Japan, it's the lowest concern of just around 26%. So it's interesting because it does suggest that statistic that there's absolutely like some sort of cultural or regional culture and regional factors that are influencing it. And in terms of AIs and job for change and concerns about that, I think it's also pretty correct. Like the younger generation are experiencing, significant changes in their jobs due to AI. Gen Z in particular is probably like the most concerned. And I think in that stat, there was around 67% or something believing that AI will alter how they work in the next 5 years, with kind of a really clear signal that the digital natives here see AI as integral, to work and the future of workflows. I think,
Yeah.
I think it's a great thing, right? Like, I think whilst there's all this worry and concern and all of this, I think AI is just an amazing, it's just an amazing tool to make everyone who maybe wasn't as smart, super smart, and everyone who's, already super smart, potentially even smarter. So I think it's a great thing. And I think there'll also be new, as we'll get through, I think in this conversation, new roles and requirements that emerge over time through this next generation of technology we're in. Back to you.
Yeah, I also actually find some statistics from Microsoft showing how many people actually, have a BYO AI tools at work, and it's basically everyone using some sort of AI at work and bringing AI tools to work. So it's definitely happening. Funny enough, yeah, it's a Microsoft research, Microsoft and LinkedIn research, and Microsoft can't sort it out the streaming on LinkedIn. So maybe Microsoft before doing AI research, maybe sort out the streaming. So guys, if you're watching us LinkedIn, I put the YouTube link. So YouTube link working much better at the moment. Just before, I want to also, start with a little like cliche phrase that probably everyone heard in the last 12 months. I even tried to Google the author of this quote, but too many people seems to claim it. So I still don't know who's the author. But basically, AI won't take your job, but someone using AI will. So I want to ask you, so is this true for enterprise architect? And if so, which AI tools should they be using right now to stay relevant?
Yeah.
Brian, maybe we'll start.
Yeah.
Oh, Malcolm, we'll start with you.
That's cool. I was just going to say that really resonates with me. This and the reason why that's really resonating with me, this saying, is because some of the things we're doing at Salesforce from an enterprise architecture perspective, if I put a lens on that, is we have this well-architected framework so to speak, which is evolving rapidly. And it fits into enterprise architecture and things like that. And, what we're doing is, before it was really manual to try and, get an understanding of, do the models meet standards, governance, all that kind of stuff that's in the past really manual and kind of boring. And now what we're doing is we're automating the whole pipeline, right? Using like multimodal approaches. So we would take, enterprise architecture models, guardrails, blueprints, and all that kind of stuff, and we'd be pumping it through an AI governance pipeline, which would then be giving, early indications of, the confidence level of kind of the architecture. So, I mean, that's one of 5 perspectives I've got, but that's certainly something that, if someone or a competitor or something like it, like that is not doing that, or someone else in the organization is not doing that, then that's certainly something that we're doing kind of right now to start accelerating that value, using this multimodal approaches within an enterprise architecture context. So I'm keen to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, look, I think that you could write a novel using pen and ink, and you could write one using a typewriter, but you're probably going to produce a longer novel faster. Potentially it might be award-winning, who knows, if you used a word processor. And the same really applies to AI, is that AI is a force multiplier. It's an augmenter. It takes what you give it, and it can make it better. It can also make it worse. And there's some quite rude words, so I won't say, but if you Google it, you'll find it. Of what AI can also do in terms of making something that was fairly a bad input and making it 1,000 times worse. So it's a tool. And humans are great at building tools, and we're also probably great at misusing tools. So we're in that sort of stage where we're learning how to use this tool. And the tool's also a very, very rough tool. We are trying to use it for things that it's probably not appropriate for. It's not strong AI yet. That's probably still a ways off, but it certainly has real capabilities. And if you choose to use cases wisely, it's a tool that can do some incredible things. The space that I'm in today, right now, was conceived by a ChatGPT prompt where I wanted to renovate an attic space inspired by Polar Express and a bit of steampunk. And it generated the most incredible image. And then I built it. And that's basically the room I'm in today. And it was, it was able to conceive of something and take an idea and imagination that I had and make it even better. So there are great use cases for these technologies, but just like anything, they can be used badly. Brian, your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think it's spot on. I mean, the reason that's become such a hackneyed trope in such a short space of time, as in, less than 12 months maybe, is because it is so true. And, I think the first time I heard it was from Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's an astrophysicist who knows nothing about AI at all. And so if it's got to, doyens of completely different fields like him, then it's certainly become very widespread. And it's absolutely spot on. This is another tool akin to the word processor, I think, as Simon's used as an analogy. Everyone has to absorb it and will absorb it very quickly until it becomes like Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel. It's a thing everyone knows how to use. It's so common you don't even ask the question anymore. It's just there all the time. And that's going to happen very quickly if it hasn't already.
Yeah, I'd argue like we're already there, Brian.
Not quite. Like if you look at some of the numbers in the consumer space, I mean, it's exponentially growing. I think Gemini is now deployed to all Android phones. Yeah, but if we use the word processor analogy, I think yes, everyone's got one, but they're typing with their elbows at the moment, right? So we're not quite at the stage, I think, where it's become embedded in the fabric. We're getting there, but not yet.
I was going to say, remember the first documents people started creating with word processors where they'd use 3 different fonts on the same paragraph. and just do crazy things, or the first versions of the internet or the web rather, where they used fonts that blinked. They'd use these tools because they were there without any sense of how to use them properly. And we're kind of at the blink stage of AI right now, where people are using it and going, actually, it looks cool and it's clever, but it's probably actually generating garbage.
Yeah, I kind of disagree completely. So, I mean, at Salesforce, we've been kind of pioneering the future of this from a enterprise perspective. Now, from a consumer's perspective, I mean, if you look at some of the stats that 01 preview come out, they're almost up in the 95th percentile for PhD students. I know we're kind of veering off the enterprise architecture thing, but I kind of completely disagree. My view is on that, and the data's kind of backing that. And they're kind of getting to a point now where it's almost they have to create, right, new tests because we've passed every test, right? We're almost at, over the 95th percentile of PhD biology, mathematics, law. I mean, it's just crushing it. Interestingly, English is lagging, and we probably can assume why, because English is not binary, right? Like some of the others, it's more interpretable. Similar, if you look at it from a cultural and a language lens, right? It's a little bit behind on some of the cultures and languages, but I'd argue we're quite far ahead. And I'd also argue that if you're not starting to integrate it into your EA pipeline now, right? Someone else is going to come in and start doing that. And kind of coming to the question, will AI enhance or replace enterprise architects? My personal view is it will absolutely replace enterprise architects once we are fully autonomous, which is likely maybe 20, 50, 100 years away. Because if you think of how everything's built, it's built for humans, right? There's not an API for everything, right? We need to use things like neural symbolic programming and other things like that to reason digitally for humans, right? So I kind of think at the moment with all these multimodals coming out and all these sorts of things, we have the ability now to do something that enterprise architects has never been able to do. And I'll tell you what that is. The thing we've never been able to do is connect our models to executable code. We've never been able to do that. Now, whether you want to use it as a blocker or an enabler or just, transparency, we've never been able to do that because we've never had ways to take in like base64 images or whatever it is from an architectural model. We've also never been able to take in guardrails, right? And like embed it completely from the enterprise architecture blueprint or reference architecture all the way through to, pre-commit hooks, right, that are integrated, let's say, into a GitHub repository. So I think that's one really powerful thing we're doing. And I know we're working with a lot of customers to also integrate this capability into like biz design and other tools. So, what that's doing effectively is it's starting to like automate the whole kind of pipeline and get early feedback from, maybe questionable engineering design decisions, right, that typically take 6 months to get back to enterprise architects. And like the way I like to think about this is closing the distance. I feel like we're closing the distance from the squads building the code to the decisions that the enterprise architectures make across the organization. So I have a bit of a different view to you guys because we're doing this at the moment. It's quite effective. And I think we're nowhere near at the moment in a place to replace enterprise architects. However, I really think with the multimodal options now available, there's an incredible opportunity for us to change the way organizations view enterprise architects and also enhance and advance the skills enterprise architects can bring to the organization. And I'd love to hear your...
the fighting words there, we've got to be able to talk about this. So first of all, I just want to say kudos to you, Malcolm, for holding off on Salesforce sales. for this long. You've done very well, very disciplined of you. So, congratulations. And we have to say Agent Force, I'm happy to use the word. It is a very impressive piece of kit, no question about it. So, as I said, kudos for you holding off. Look, this is the area where I cut my teeth. This is the area where I did my PhD research 100 years ago, right? When in the bad old days, when we did things like deductive databases.
Ago, you're looking great for 100.
Yeah, well,
let's just say that. Only your cream.
We did things like predicate logic and deductive database systems and case-based reasoning and all this stuff, and it did look exciting and easy. And in fact, now what I'm seeing a lot of is a move toward what Gartner's calling composite AI, and I predict that that's going to be a thing in 2025 without question. So composite AI, briefly for our listeners, is taking LLMs and in fact generative AI and synthesizing that with other more traditional technologies like graph databases, for example, or even things like predicate logic systems and inductive reasoning systems and so forth. That will be a thing next year, no question. But we're stumbling around the dark looking for the door at the moment. This is a problem space that is very well explored and crashed and burned in the 90s. I mean, we had 10,000 PhDs from all around the world, very smart people who just couldn't solve the problem. We're going to get another try at that now, but it is going to take some time. And I know the initial stages will look very promising. They do at the moment, certainly good enough to sell some product. But I can tell you, once we start getting into the meat of things, which is happening now, then we're going to strike those problems. And what I'm seeing a lot of now is, in fact, people, going through old archives of papers from the 80s and 90s and bringing out things that couldn't be done then because we didn't have the compute and we didn't have the data and we didn't have little pieces that we've now got, and dusting those off and making some real headway. And that's going to continue. But this is a long road. This is not going to be easy. So anyway, that's my view.
Thanks, both. Malcolm, I get it. I'm ex-Salesforce as well once upon a time.
Sorry, just to be clear, this wasn't about Salesforce.
No, we're good. I think it's
using like Python code and LangChain. There's all sorts of things we're doing, right? It's the principles.
We're good. So I'm not suggesting for a second that generative AI is the newest cold fusion. It's some sort of incredibly well marketed idea that went nowhere. It's not. It's a very, very important foundational technology, but it's part of a toolkit of a series of technologies that have reached the point of maturity we're about to. We're doing some really cool stuff with knowledge graphs and combining taxonomies with generative AI, and you're taking together those two technology stacks along with multi-models, creating this concept of quires, where you have multiple models and you're looking for the provenance and you're looking for actually forming up a good question. Douglas Adams wasn't so wrong, where the meaning of life might be 42, but what's the question? And so understanding the question is kind of a long way towards understanding the answer. So we're at that stage where the tools are rough and raw. I think I wrote a blog post. We're at the sort of CGI bin stage. And that's not to discredit. So we went from CGI bin, using that to create executables, and Jeff Bezos created Amazon using CGI bin. So you can create incredible innovations. And yes, large language models are considerably more complex than using a shell script inside of a directory on a Unix file system to create an e-commerce platform. But we're still at that rough and raw stage. We are still building models that hallucinate, and we're still building whole infrastructures to detect those hallucinations, but it's maturing incredibly quickly, almost on a daily basis. So there are use cases that it's absolutely appropriate to use for right now. And to go to the question, at the heart of an architect is somebody who is able to manage the transition of technologies, manage to identify technologies that are valuable and important and useful, and how they can be employed successfully inside enterprises or inside governments. And whether you're an enterprise architect, a domain architect, or a solution architect, this is a critical technology that will make a significant change to everything we do, almost across the board. And so, I think enterprise architects and solution architects and domain architects are at the sort of ground zero of this in many ways. Or they're amongst the people at ground zero, along with the data scientists and the large language model experts. They're at a critical point. I look at the example that was in the news today of the employee using generative AI to produce a case file for in the courts, and it created a huge embarrassment when it was discovered that this person in Victorian government used generative AI. I actually don't.
I think that was the case in the US earlier this year.
Yeah, and there's going to be cases like that. That failure is not actually of that person to use their initiative to try use a new technology. It's actually a failure to provide the guardrails for that person to be able to use that technology in a safe way. And if we don't provide the guardrails, and particularly if enterprise architects and solution architects and domain architects don't create those guardrails, then this stuff's going to happen. And it's happened before with every other technology, whether it's cloud or SaaS or web or what have you. So enterprise architects are at a critical point. The other thing which I think is really interesting is that enterprise architects particularly have always been skilled at talking to the business, particularly the good ones. They've always been skilled at thinking strategically. And I think we will start to see a sort of a shift left of enterprise architects knocking on the door of the sort of business that McKinsey used to do and Boston Consulting, to start to have those sorts of strategic conversations. And so I think that's going to build some new skills in enterprise architects, because they will have a toolkit where they can work through the execution side of it, but now they can actually start talking about this more strategic. And to go to some of your thoughts, Malcolm, which I completely agree with, we will see a thread of congruency between strategy all the way through to execution. Today, the tools that a McKinsey uses, PowerPoint and Word, are totally different to the tools an enterprise architect uses, or are totally different again to the tools that an engineer uses, that are different again to somebody in the support desk. These tools all leak information, and information gets lost and rehashed. I think we will see with generative AI and with AI in general, and a way for the enterprise architect to tie it all together and be able to develop strategy, prototype that strategy, and then deliver that strategy at scale. I think that's going to be incredibly exciting.
We have quite a few questions coming up from the audience. I think audience actually have a debate in the comments themselves. There's one specific question here from Hugh. How do you see the growth of agents and agentic frameworks changing the nature of the role of AI and prerequisite knowledge to be effective?
Can I just jump in 30 seconds on that? I think enterprise architects particularly right now, have a role to make wise choices. I'm not, if there's anybody on Microsoft listening in, I'm not having to go at you. You're a great company, blah blah blah. But we want to make choices that have few regrets. And so there's a lot of land grabbing going on here. And you want to choose technologies where you can manage your AI strategy yourself and not necessarily outsource it to, whether it's to Microsoft or Google or Salesforce or whoever it is. So it's about managing the tools. There's also a lot to be said for open source AI, and the rate of innovation in open source AI is very comparable, if not faster, than the rate that you're seeing coming out of Microsoft and OpenAI. So I think that there's incredibly powerful toolkits, and really understanding those toolkits and being able to choose the right mix of those toolkits and building multi-agent frameworks and this concept of choirs and orchestration, that to me is that journey that enterprise architects and the solution architects and domain architects, they need to become literate if they're not already, and they need to lead that conversation at both the business and an execution level.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to be a little bit controversial here. I think, and I'm waiting for some responses, right? So I think being a little bit more technical on this is also good, right? And the reason why I'm saying this is because there's a lot of fluff and marketing stuff out there, right? And it's only until, I know on several occasions with buddies of mine, we've sat there, gone through a bunch of code, and then fully understood what we can do. So whether it's an agent or agentic framework, maybe in LangChain, AutoGen as the open source ones, or a few other big ones out there. I think just having this fundamental understanding of the principles and the architectural constraints and things like that you can build by using these frameworks for agentic orchestration, things like that. I think that's the prerequisite knowledge to becoming effective with these, because it's difficult to really truly understand, how agentic frameworks work if you're just reading marketing. So I think as an enterprise architect for this particular piece of tech that's coming through, we're finding it really good just to getting a little bit on the tools just to get across it as a prerequisite. So then when you go into have conversations around, let's say it's risk, around toxicity detection, bias, PII, all that kind of trust and transparency side, you can lead the company with much more strength because you have a great grounding yourself in it as well, and you can help direct your architects to start looking in areas that they may not have looked in before, because you've got a bit more of a detailed understanding of it. Pass back to the team.
I'm glad you've given me the last word there, Malcolm. So look, I think one of the important things to remember here is that agent technology is not new. It's been around for 20 years. I mean, we tried this before, and I think what's happening now is exactly what happened then, is you start to hit the wall because what we realize is that for very simple things, let's say, for example, create a new customer or automatically creates an invoice or something like that, then these kinds of things work very well. But once you start to get anything more complex that requires judgment, that requires a world model, which is what people use instinctively and naturally, then it becomes much more complicated. And the kinds of limitations we have with current Gen AI technology, which lead to things like hallucinations and a fundamentally stochastic view of the world, that provides significant challenges when it comes to automation at anything above even the most basic. Now, to be clear, agents are going to become a thing, there's no question, but they're not going to become a thing in 2025, right? They're going to become a thing a little bit later down the track when we started to get, as Simon pointed out very rightly, we started to get some of the guardrails in place. And in my view, at least nascent forms of some kind of world model that gives the systems a principle or a basis to fall back on when the descriptions that have been given for the context of those agents runs out, when it's sort of outside its domain. At the moment, LLMs, which are the core of all Gen AI, at least in the market at the moment, they're fundamentally stochastic systems, and the core problem with them is that for us, 2 + 2 is equal to 4, right? Always. For an LLM, 2 + 2 is equal to 4 90% of the time, but 5% of the time is 27. And 1% of the time it's 250. They're fundamentally stochastic models, which means the kinds of precision that are required in very specific areas is not available to those models, and they will make mistakes. Now, those mistakes are fine if you create an invoice to a customer which is in error. They're not fine if you book a $10,000 business class ticket to the UK when you wanted to go to Bali on economy class on a Jetstar special. So, so there's some ironing out that needs to be done.
I think we'll also see a different way to sort of see things. I think people are still looking at large language models as sort of an incarnation of the web. You go to ChatGPT or you go to a particular large language model and you fire off a question. I think we'll start to see that decompose to be, because you'll start to see it decompose, and you'll see small language models, and you'll see basically microservice-based models where it's actually about more of a fabric, and it's about creating confidence across that services fabric. We've already built a couple of things where we've taken that sort of very fine-grained approach, multi-model, building models built that are trained around particular types of problems, and building that orchestration. And I think that is I think where we'll see more and more of that sort of notion of an AI services fabric. And that also builds in the guardrails as part of it. It gives you the ability to take a question and fully understand it, deploy it to a series of models, get a series of responses, process those responses, identify if there's any significant divergence in response from the models, and then have confidence levels back from the, in terms of the answers. So that sort of, that rigor is absent or doesn't come out of the box yet. But guess what? Wait a week and it probably will, because the rate of change is that quick.
It is.
I think I have millions questions coming in. I know it's like quite an intense conversation, but I'm going to just squeeze in some questions from the audience as well. I think it's quite a good question, especially taking consideration a lot of people who are watching us actually enterprise architect. Gina is asking, important panel question, how does enterprise architect become a strategic voice in the team around AI? We're seeing so many people trying to say they're AI experts. How do you raise above the noise? Does anyone have some advice?
I do, yeah. So this is in fact central to what I have to do in my role, in fact, is to differentiate with, as the question is rightly put, a great deal of noise. And I think the best approach is to just stay steady, is to provide real advice that is insightful and beyond the money. Focus on making sure that you understand fundamentally the problem space, you understand the technology, you understand the value proposition and what the customers are looking for, and just keep on the money, just stay on target. Because what happens with the noise is it just falls by the wayside. You've got a lot of pundits out there making all sorts of hyperbolic predictions. You've got a lot of salespeople, not you, Malcolm, but a lot of salespeople selling their snake oil. You've got a lot of people out there with, sort of glass beads, and that very quickly becomes manifest. So if you stay on target, then people will learn to trust you. They'll learn to trust your judgment and your insights, and then your voice rises above the others.
And I guess I just want to also expand a little bit this question. So also in terms of like skill set of enterprise architects, I guess we it's already 40 minutes into our stream. We didn't even get to the half of the questions, but also if you can expand in terms of like what sort of how the skill set of the enterprise architect are going to change in the near future. So what skills they need to concentrate for, a part of maybe being seen as AI experts. Well, what other skills enterprise architects need to focus on? Simon, you started.
Yeah, look, I was going to build on something that Brian was saying, but to answer your sort of clarification, I think being consultative, being able to have a conversation with diverse stakeholders is always been a critical skill of an enterprise architect, but this particularly so. And with any new technology, the smartest thing is often to say very little and just listen and absorb and become proficient. The people who said they were proficient in big data or proficient in the web or proficient in any new thing as it came along, there's always people who are out there on the frontier, waving a particular flag. I think sometimes the smartest thing is actually sometimes pause, be a little quiet, listen, absorb. And actually, these are tool sets that are readily accessible. You can, we ran a hackathon at Trideca about a couple of months back, or a month or so ago, and we had 60 people in the room who had never, or many of them had never used a large language model. And by the end of the sort of 2 or 3 hour session with, supplied with alcohol and pizza, they were all building stuff. And they were all actually had a high level of proficiency that they could actually build things and real things. So if you haven't put yourself through that exercise, definitely do so. If you need assistance, by all means, reach out over LinkedIn, and we'll plug you into the decks that we used and the tutorials that we ran and so forth. But these aren't technologies that actually have a significant hurdle to get started in. They do have a significant hurdle to become experts in. But start with becoming proficient. Start with understanding the capabilities and limitations. Start with also starting to think through some of the work that's being done to overcome those limitations. So combining generative with predictive models, combining graph and knowledge graph concepts and taxonomies, and some of the work that's being done and where that's taking it around the world. It is shifting almost on a daily basis, and it is an exciting place. And it is an area where I think enterprise and domain and solution architects do need to have a level of proficiency.
Yeah, it kind of ties into. I agree with you totally, Simon. Getting on the tools, just getting a bit of an understanding of how this works. I just want to mention one thing about the talent. So something I've seen that kind of works quite well in the field is that people lead with a risk lens, right, and a very cautious lens, right? So we know humans have to be in the loop, right? there's so many examples where people are deploying these Gen AIs publicly, not working. But what we've seen in the companies that I've been working with, which are some of the largest banks, is that they lead with a risk lens, right, first, and then they're just very subtly trying to lead the way, right, from, okay, guys, so what are we doing from a toxicity biased PII? How do we create like this? I don't know. Is it a transparency layer, a trust, a security layer? What is this thing? Before we do anything, we need to understand that. And then what I've seen work with EAs quite well is them starting to facilitate meetings around educating and bringing other people on the journey. And they've been able to do that by doing a lot of research themselves. And look, we're all learning.
Oh, Malcolm's frozen. You there, Malcolm? Perhaps I can build on that.
Not on our side.
Yeah, maybe I can build on that a bit, Jana. I think there's something important to draw out here. And that's probably what I've seen over the last 12 months or so with respect to these questions, these areas. 12 months ago, the questions were mainly, what's this all about? From an executive level, I mean, so I'm talking CIOs and CEOs. The questions were, what's this all about? Is it real? What do I need to know? Where are the risks, etc.? Now that seems to be shifting. Now everyone's played with all the shiny toys, and we've got a reasonable picture of kind of where things are heading. Now the questions seem to be centering on, how do I realize value from these things? Because of course, sponsors, executive sponsors and funding bodies, they will only put money into things for a certain amount of time before they want to see what they're getting, what bang they're getting for their buck. So now it seems to be shifting to more towards how do I realize value? And from an EA point of view, I think that's how I would start to shape some of that conversation. Welcome back, Malcolm.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I don't know what happened. I just it kind of
Australian internet strike again. So we're really having a bit of a fun with the LinkedIn, Windows, Microsoft, and everything today. But we're having a great discussion. That's the main thing. I think, Simon, you want to mention something?
Oh, look, I just the comment that this is an area of technology that I think is definitely one that it's not going to be stopped. It's going to happen. The early days of sort of people using cloud technologies, paved the way for a completely transformative model. And credit to Mark Benioff and as one of the earliest implementers of an enterprise cloud platform. Probably is before anyone else had done it, he took a major platform and stood it up in the cloud. And there was a lot of uncertainty for a long time as to you can't run an enterprise platform in a data center that's not inside your building. But those we look at that now and go, well, actually, why would you run your own enterprise systems in your own data center? It's actually flipped on its head now, and I think we'll see the same with the use of AI. It's also the other thing that's interesting about that is Salesforce, when it was purchased, tended to get purchased by the business. It didn't actually often get purchased by the CIO. And I worked at Yammer, and Yammer was a great platform that, again, the CIOs hated it. Well, they didn't hate it, but it was getting used by the users. And I think we've seen the same sort of model with AI. It's being adopted by end users. It's been adopted by business. And then technology sometimes left scrambling, going, how do we put the guardrails in? How do we control it? How do we use it and manage that technology transition? So, I think there is work to be done across the board in almost every enterprise of how to create those guardrails and use these technologies appropriately, and also to shape the conversation as to what are the use cases that it's really well suited for right now. And what are the use cases that you might want to investigate looking at in, say, a year or 2 years' time? And what are the ones you want to probably stay away from altogether for the moment until we get to the next incarnation of the architectures? Because there are absolutely some great use cases that we're working on right now where generative AI is amazingly effective. And others where you'd go, okay, I can do it, but I need a lot of humans in the loop as part of the process. And I think that getting that balance right is absolutely the job for enterprise architects to have a very active voice.
Yeah, I think keeping, you nailed it, Simon, keeping humans in the loop, in my view, is the only way that we should be deploying this stuff at the moment and internally to the EAs out there. Also, like some of the, the way I'm kind of thinking about it for the EA capability is like you might be able to think about some cool use cases to help you automate your own kind of governance. And then there's probably stuff on your backlog that maybe if you're set up in a domain basis that maybe you've never got to. So partnering up with whoever's leading the risk and compliance, toxicity, all kind of like that side. A good way, if you're not part of that, to get part of that is to come up with a low risk use case, to Brian and Simon's point, and then partner with that EA to see if you might be able to start bringing people on that journey. And then over weeks and months, you'll start building up your position as also being one of the leaders in the company for AI, but in a kind of a secure, safe, sound and secure way.
There's also some great problems that enterprise architects can have a significant voice in helping solve. So today, pretty much every enterprise stack, from Salesforce to ServiceNow to what have you, are all integrating AI into their platforms. And for the most part, it's a siloed implementation of an AI technology. And what you really want, though, is to be able to connect all these things together. And you want to be able to have information passed around within your enterprise. So it's sort of going from where we are with sort of service-oriented architectures and APIs integrating to actually I want my sales AI to talk to my customer AI, to talk to my risk AI, to talk to my this, and these large platforms start actually working in with an orchestration around them. And those definitions of what that looks like, I think, are still emerging. And there's a significant role for architects to start to define what that looks like and how you build that sort of architecture.
Guys, we already passed 50 minutes of our stream with millions of questions in the comments as well. Thank you, everyone who've been commenting. Like, if we don't have time to answer all the questions, but we'll definitely come back to the chat later and try to answer some of your questions offline as well. You can also connect with all of us on LinkedIn. Sorry that LinkedIn stream not working that perfectly today, but you can still see our names on the screen. So please connect with Brian. Please connect with Simon, Malcolm. Connect with me if you're looking for your new enterprise architecture roles. So always happy to chat. And I guess let's just briefly, really briefly, guys, maybe just to finish this live stream, I guess what's you excited about? So what's next? What one thing you will be excited about AI in enterprise architecture in 2025? Yes, Brian, is there something that really excites you?
There is.
You look.
There really is. The one thing that I'm looking forward to is something that's really good at making PowerPoints. That would be a fantastic tool because, EAs, we spend a lot of our time trying to synthesize things into Sesame Street views for consumption at various levels of the enterprise for obvious reasons. That is a time-consuming role, and I think if AI can produce something that will make that easy and slick and nice, it's something that's graphic designed properly and so forth, that would be fantastic. And then we can focus on the real value add stuff, which is, understanding the real problem space, understanding the solution options that are available, different things that we need to look out for, risk, as Malcolm's pointed out, etc., cost ROI, and then focusing on those value add things. That's what I'm looking forward to.
I'll jump in there. Apart from, like, we've been playing around with Gamma, and Gamma's not bad. But but what I want is to be able to take a strategy conversation and drive it all the way through to an execution and delivery conversation. And that's where you need that protocol, you need that architectural lens on things, and you need to be able to understand how you take a set of strategic imperatives and goals and turn them into requirements and user stories, and then turn that into an architecture and take that through a governance process to then, and that's essentially an editorial process, and it leads to an artifact that you can then give to a coder or AI, and it can then generate that prototype. So that's where it's going. That's, we're already playing around with those sorts of approaches. We call that intelligent engineering. And we think that's sort of where things are going. I think there are lots of other people who have similar thoughts on that. So I don't think it's a unique idea. But I do think that it's a significant shift in the role of our enterprise architects across an organization as an interface with the business and as an interface with technology people. So I think it's exciting times to be an enterprise architect or domain architect or a specialist architect of any sort.
Welcome.
You guys have left me nothing. You've covered everything. All right, so
is this like a group hug now?
I love it. I love it. You talked about ages. You talked about connecting the whole pipeline together. I guess the only thing left is then to think, how could we use this superpower to help drive businesses forward even more, potentially into new markets or things like that. So yeah, I mean, apart from all the great stuff that Brian and Simon just said, that's probably another superpower, which is really cool to enhance our capability.
I really like the comments. David asking, do you have an answer to the topic? And his answer, Jurish already gave him answer. In 50, 100 years.
I think we have air traffic controllers. They don't fly planes, but they do manage the orchestration of airports. Enterprise architects have often been referred to as air traffic controllers or taking care of the orchestration of technology in an organization. I think we will see that happen, but we'll see the scale of that just amplify and amplify. And so the potential for enterprise architects is to have a significantly more profound impact. That said, there's a choice. You can, there aren't a lot of jobs for the people who shovel coal into a steam train. Those jobs disappeared when we moved to diesel and to electric. So the jobs change. We still have people driving trains, and we still have journalists, and we still have lots of jobs have changed. The challenge for enterprise architects is to embrace these technologies, understand them, and master them to the level they can see the potential and how they can be leveraged successfully. Yeah. And that's a challenge. Yeah. That's a challenge to all of us.
Yeah,
that's spot on, Simon.
In 100 years.
Well, hopefully less than that. But I have to say, the analogy I normally use for EAs is that we're the guys in the crow's nest, right? We're the ones looking out to the horizon. We're the ones calling out land ho. We're the ones making sure that the ship is on track as the captain wants it to be. And I think Simon's exactly right. In this space, what's coming up is coming up fast. It's a rapidly changing landscape, and our job is to just keep really informed and advise our clients or bosses, as the case may be, on the best way forward, the best opportunities to try and exploit, the best risks or the worst risks, let's say, to avoid.
And this is a constant one too, right? I kind of like, if you look at it, it's like, well, is this going to go away in maybe 5-10 years? I don't know. So because it's kind of like probably perceived as a constant one, which it likely could be. For this one, you might want to go a little bit deeper as well, like I think what we've been talking about, to try and get those kind of fundamentals, and then also to Simon's point, you can be a much stronger leader as an enterprise architect by kind of understanding those as well. Yeah.
Guys, we completely run out of time, so I hope maybe in 100 years we can watch this live stream back, see how bad the internet connection was 100 years ago, and see if there's still plenty of enterprise architects around, or it all been changed. But at the moment, so I just want to make the announcement for our next discussion. I feel like we need to prolong this discussion for a few more months, but we already have a discussion for next month. So our next discussion will be on the 31st of October on the topic of service design and enterprise architecture, contradictory or complementary. So we're going to discuss, do they clash or collaborate? comes to shaping the future of business and driving business transformation and innovation. So yeah, let's find out together in 4 weeks. And guys, I just really want to encourage you, so to get notified, please make sure to join our meetup group. We have a new meetup group for Modern Enterprise Architecture Collective. So we have separate groups for Australia, New Zealand, and UK. So it depends what country you are. Please join the groups. We're planning to run some face-to-face event in the future. So would love for you to join. Obviously, subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow our LinkedIn page. Depends obviously how you would like to consume your information. But by today's experience, you better subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get a better quality of the stream and they can ask questions live. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, please join us on the next event on the 31st of October. Looking forward to your future questions. Also looking forward to any feedback. We're always happy to bring new guests and new discussions. And if you want to hear from particular guests or particular topics, feel free to message me on LinkedIn. Happy to hear any feedback. So a lot of thank you coming from people. Thank you guys for saying hi. We're completely out of time. Thank you for Malcolm, Brian, and Simon for spending this afternoon with me. And I hope everyone had a bit of fun.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.